Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another film review. And I probably want to talk about one of the worst movies I have watched this year so far, and that is Venom Let There Be Carnage. Now, don't let the 6.3 in IMDb fool you. This is probably a 3.6, maybe even less or more, just depending on whether you actually like, Carnage and Venom before you watch this film. And whether you have no context or any idea about how this entire Marvel character universe works uh, with regards to Carnage and Venom. So Carnage and Venom are very much Spider-Man villains in the comics, and this film, I mean, the recent, Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage, of course, have no relation to the Spider-Man films whatsoever. And if you haven't watched this film, there's going to be some spoilers, and I'm going to start by telling you that the film actually ends with a what do you call this post-credit scene of them connecting this Venom to the Spider-Man universe, the current Tom Holland Spider-Man, by sort of transporting him to that dimension. And how that transport works is not really explained, but we'll probably get more context when we do go to Spider-Man No Way Home. Regardless, it is definitely clear that Tom Hardy's Venom will be in the upcoming Tom Holland Spider-Man film, if not maybe in a film after that. But regardless, let me tell you that the first Venom film that Tom Hardy acted in was by no means a good movie, but it was a decent film. I felt that it had a decent villain. Tom Hardy is a brilliant actor, there's no question about it. All the other supporting cast were absolutely horrible in the first film, but definitely Tom Hardy talking to himself was pretty much one of the best things you can ever watch. In any universe, pretty much, basically. So Tom Hardy does voice both himself and Venom, and that in itself is quite impressive. So a monologue by Tom Hardy is of course going to captivate anyone. And in the first film, we did have some returning cast basically from that, which is Reed Scott as Dr. Dan, of course his ex-girlfriend Michelle Williams as Anne. I believe the rest of these are all new characters. I can't remember the detective was in the first film, but he is also here in the second film, and he doesn't really have much of a role. So basically, the supporting cast in this film did almost close to nothing, right? This movie is pretty much about Eddie Brock's Venom and Cletus Cassidy's Carnage, and everyone else. All their supporting characters were absolutely horrible. Like them being or not being in the film made no difference to the plot or the end game. Like it didn't really set up any cliches or cliffhangers or any things like, oh, maybe now they're going to use this thing that they've learned in throughout the film, or this reason this character was developed for this is nope, no, none of that. Just forget about it. You can completely take your brain, throw it into a trash can, and then go and watch this film. Or if you don't have one already, probably you'll enjoy this. But quite honestly, I absolutely hate these kinds of films because um, it's just taking you further and further away from accepting what good films are and making you accept what bad films are as good films. And that's what this one seems to do, because the first movie was definitely better than this. And also in this one, the plot is pretty brain dead. Like they really did not know how to bring Carnage into the story, and so they just dump us into the story of Cletus Cassidy already waiting for some form of execution. So there's no real creation or like build up of this character. There's no flashback. There's no backstory. There's no actual proof of what he's been doing and how he's been killing people. And this was a PG-13 film, which is probably the worst way to take a Venom movie, because this look at the characters, look at Carnage, right? Look at Carnage, look at Venom. And this movie is supposed to be all about blood and gore and killing. And we do see all the killings happen off screen, all the blood and gore basically deleted. There's no blood, there's no gore. Like these things would cause kids nightmares. I'm not kidding you. So there's really no point of making this a PG-13 film. Like, of course, 13-year-olds are probably not gonna be scared. Maybe not even 10, but anyone under the age of 10 will definitely get scared. But why even bother? Just make it a 16 plus with violence, or 18 plus with gore and violence, and just go crazy. This is what this film was supposed to be about. It says, "Let there be carnage," and let me tell you, there was no carnage. Like, yes, there's the character Carnage, but the definition of Carnage itself is not fulfilled in this film in any way. It's really not. It doesn't sort of do justice to any of these characters. Like Naomi Harris is a really good actress, by the way. I like her in a lot of other movies, but in this one, like she had zero to no role. Like I thought her scream ability would be the one thing that would sort of be a threat to Venom. But no, even Carnage doesn't like her. So her being on Carnage's side, I thought was going to be an advantage, but she was actually a disadvantage to both characters because her scream would actually kill both of them, and there was no way Carnage could use her to any advantage. So even Carnage, that is inside, he's sort of like Venom's son, and he's inside Cassidy, and Carnage doesn't like her either because she has the ability to scream, and that puts them both off. So to start with the plot, basically, you start off with Cassidy in a prison awaiting execution, and Eddie Brock is called by him to go and visit him because Eddie Brock is apparently the investigator that put him in prison. So he's curious to have some visitor, and he wants Eddie Brock there. And later on, it builds to a story where he tells that he just wanted a friend, and he wanted Eddie Brock to be the friend, which makes absolutely no sense. So Eddie Brock does agree to meet him in prison, and when that happens, for some reason, he sort of pisses off Venom, who is in Eddie Brock, and Venom grabs him in prison, and no one notices this. No security camera is apparently observing the most dangerous murderer or whatever, who is pending execution. So none of them actually see Venom's arm come out of Eddie Brock to go and catch Cassidy, and then Cassidy actually bites into Eddie's hand, and that causes like a bit of venom to leak out of Eddie Brock and into Cassidy, and the little bit of venom somehow activates when Cassidy is actually being executed when they inject these what do you call this um, the sort of poison into him to sort of kill him slowly and gradually, which is how I believe they euthanize murderers. So, but yeah, when the chemicals go inside him, all of a sudden he gets full control of the little bit of DNA left by Venom inside him, and he turns into Carnage. It's never explained. There's no scientific research. There's no scientists working on this very science fiction like movie. So basically, they're telling you just don't question it, just go with it, and fine, okay, we went with it. But since you're telling me that this is not a sci-fi movie, this movie doesn't, use any form of logical thinking. See, logic doesn't have to be something that's realistic, right? Logic is you telling me 1 plus 1 equals 2. But if you're telling me in this world 1 plus 1 equals 3, I will understand that that's the logic of this world. But if you don't want to explain the logic, that's fine. So you want to focus on things that are not logical, that's great. But the things that are not logical is character building, which was shit in this movie. The story was shit in this movie. The music was not that impressive at all. I don't remember any of it. Maybe one song in particular when Carnage actually first appears. That's pretty creepy. I like that. But I think the rest of it was just meh, whatever. Venom's theme we've already heard in the first one. I think they did tweak it a little bit. But other than that, that's it. The CGI, of course, is it's decent CGI to be honest, because when I watched it in cinema, it looks a lot better than these photos. The CGI is decent, but they don't really do anything impressive with it. Like besides animating Venom and Carnage, there were just a few scenes where Carnage does this like crazy tornado thing in the prison that he never does again. And that CGI felt a little bit like watching the Warner Brothers Wile E. Coyote go spinning, so it felt a little bit like that. But other than that, the rest of it was pretty decent CGI, I would say. So after Cassidy gets turns into Carnage, he escapes from prison, and then Brock and Venom just have an argument with each other, something they've already done in the first film. They do it again here for like, I think they argue for almost half an hour. For 30 minutes of the film, they argue and then they break up. Like, I'm talking like boyfriend girlfriend style breakup. So basically, like, if you were to think about this from a filmmaking perspective, it's basically Tom Hardy arguing with himself for half an hour and then breaking up with himself. And I really like that. But the arguing, are you serious? That's your script? Argue with yourself for half an hour and then we're gonna go to the next scene. It was like the worst decision ever, or script written by some, I don't know, like 5-year-old who thought that arguing with himself was the best film in the world or something. Like if you're talking character building, I would understand, but we've already done this in the first film, so it's kind of repetitive. So anyway, Venom breaks up with him, and then Carnage is suddenly all of a sudden a menace and a threat and killing people in prison and escaping prison, and all of this stuff is happening. So there's actually the detective who starts to investigate the case, who's absolutely useless in this film. He doesn't really do anything, doesn't serve much of a role. Like, yes, he's there, but he doesn't do anything, by being there in any way or anything like that. So um, Carnage goes after his ex-girlfriend, who is Frances, who's acted by Naomi Harris, and her ability is that she can somehow scream and project very high frequency sound waves from her mouth. So immediately I thought if these two team up, Venom wouldn't stand a chance and he may have to find some allies, and perhaps we will see some better performance from the supporting cast trying to help him defeat these two together. But no, no, apparently even Carnage doesn't like her. So it's actually Venom and Carnage fighting each other, and they're both against Naomi Harris, who doesn't stand a single chance against the two of them. So the only time she actually gets to unleash her powers towards the very end, where she screams before she dies, and then that basically knocks Venom and Carnage off long enough for Venom to sort of find the advantage and then get the upper hand against Carnage and then beat him. But yeah, that's about it. And also, you know how the symbiotes don't like need to find a match in the first film. They really, make it a very important factor that the symbiotes really need to find someone who's a perfect match to use their powers to the fullest. Well, in this film, Venom, once he breaks up with Eddie Brock, actually just goes around town, just jumping from person to person, having so much fun. Being able to go around partying and spending so much time on the outside. And apparently, no one who's looking for the symbiote finds Venom. There's no intelligence involved in the investigation. So yeah, it's one of the worst movies I've ever watched this year so far, and I hope this year just comes to an end because I'm done with these bad films. This was really, really like this is trash. This might be the worst superhero, or rather, it's not a superhero, right? Venom's not a superhero. It's an anti-hero. But this might be the worst comic book film ever made, I think. Hmm. I mean, actually need to put the worst comic book, film tier list. That's actually a good point. Like, give me a sec. Let me just pull something up. Alright, so I found this list on IMDb, and yes, they do list Venom: Let There Be Carnage as a superhero film in IMDb. But of course, this could be some kind of private list, but it does fall under the category. As you can see, it's action, adventure, sci-fi. Okay, let me tell you, forget about sci-fi. There is no science involved. There's only pure fiction. Adventure? Are you kidding me? Action? Yes, I agree. So yeah, anyway, I think there are at least like there's 343 feature film titles, and probably out of these, like I think Venom might be one of the worst I've ever seen. I'm not even kidding. Okay, super babies don't really fall under superhero, do they? I don't know, but all of these are pretty. Yep, these are definitely nope, nope, nope. Disaster films. Meet the Spartans is hilarious, but that's not a superhero film by any chance. Actually, I don't know why half of these movies are even here. So probably yeah, I gotta find another list for it. But yeah, it might just be one of the worst ever made. I think this 1997 Batman and Robin that's got a 3.8 is definitely better than this film than Venom Let There Be Carnage. Definitely, this movie may have been crap because of like the goofy and wacky atmosphere and whatever, but I enjoyed it, to be honest. I was a kid when I watched this film, but I think if I rewatch it, I might actually enjoy it. Yeah, you know what? I'll probably rewatch this film just to give you guys some kind of review and tell you whether it's actually bad as what people think, or was it actually decent. I actually recall this being decent. Yeah, I'd probably give this like a 4 or 5, to be honest. I don't think it'll be as bad as whatever Venom was. So So yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting thought. So anyway, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Let me pull up the rating for you. There we go. There we go. It's a 2 out of 10 film, one of the lowest rated films I've ever given. So just by sheer points of my out of 10 rating, of course, I give 2 points for a lot of different categories, and the last one I give for music, I give for the cinematography, I give for the acting, I give for the story, I give for the what do you call this? The sort of plot and moral values and sort of or like what you learn from the film, like what's the point of watching the film, whether it's pure entertainment, blah blah blah. So I actually give this film like naturally I think like 4 to 5 points, and then I deduct from it based on the things that they on purpose did bad. And since the story was just absolute trash, I think I deduct a point for that. And the acting was absolute trash. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tom Hardy carried this film. Like, these 2 points out of 10, I think I'd give like a 1.5 just for Tom Hardy, and the zero point 0.5 just for the fact that they created these characters and put them on screen. There's absolutely nothing else that's good about this movie. Like, they just wanted to put a fight between Venom and Carnage. They could have just done a 20-minute video of that and posted it on YouTube. There's no reason to make a 1 hour 40-minute film where after half an hour of arguing and bickering, you gave us like a they gave a good decent fight though. I think it's about 15 to 20 minute long fight between Venom and Carnage and all the shenanigans that happen. But the build up to it was just so bad that there's really no point in you even watching it. If you ask me whether you should ever watch this film, as I said before, my reviews always come down to the fact of me just being honest. Like if someone asks me, "Hey, you tried that burger last weekend. Was that a good burger? Should I eat it?" I'd be like, "Nope. Please don't try that burger. It tasted absolutely horrible." And that's what I'll tell you about movies too. So for me, this movie was an absolutely horrible movie. Do not watch it. Do not support this kind of films. But if you're really, really curious and you do end up watching it, well, good luck to you. Hope you survive it. But if you actually enjoyed it and you think there are some parts that are really good, that are actually better than certain other films, please do let me know. And I'm really curious because I try to enjoy movies the best I can for what they are. And let me tell you, the best part of this movie, without doubt, is just Tom Hardy. Everything else, like, don't get me wrong, some of these actors are really good. Michelle is a really good actor. Naomi's a really good actor. Woody Harrelson. I don't really know much about Reed Scott, but I think I have seen him as a side character in a lot of other films as well. Stephen Graham, I've actually seen him in something. I can't recall where I saw him. But as for these three characters, they are all good actors, especially Woody Harrelson and Naomi Harris. I think these two are like really top actors, but not as top as Tom Hardy, of course. But man, they didn't do anything in this film. It's just a CGI menace and whatever. So yeah, see you guys in the next one. Take care.